And since you can't use a testosterone base or follow HCG monotherapy to sustain intratesticular sex hormone production while using WADA-approved SARMs or prohormones, that basically means that these compounds are completely off the menu unless you prefer to walk around in an androgen deficient and estrogen deficient state all the time. Okay, let's get started. Don't worry, we'll go through all of the segments. For each segment, I'll list which compound isn't specifically mentioned, but it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to beat the drug test. I mean, if WADA wants you to fill, they'll make you fill, which they actually have a clause at the start of the prohibited list, which falls under S0 non-approved substances, where they specifically mention prohibited at all times in and out of competition. All prohibited substances in this class are specified substances, and I quote, "Any pharmacological substance which is not addressed by any of the subsequent sections of the list and with no current approval by any governmental regulatory health authority for human therapeutic use, as in drugs under preclinical or clinical development or discontinued designer drugs, substances approved only for veterinary use, is prohibited at all times." So basically 99% of the stuff that we're going to mention in this video, prohibited at all times. But let's continue. This class covers many different substances, including but not limited to body protection compound 157, 2,4-dinitrophenol, DNP, and then a couple other compounds which we generally don't use in the fitness space. So basically what they're saying here is that if there's currently no FDA-approved medical application within the United States or medical application approved by an FDA equivalent in other countries, then it's automatically not allowed. Now, if you're an American and you're going to be Kamala Harris about mentioning the FDA, that it's only US-based, here is a comprehensive list of FDA equivalent organizations by country regulating the food and drugs for that particular country or region, right? There's more than the FDA within the United States. Every country or every region has some sort of equivalent regulating foods and drugs. So please stop complaining about it. So if you can get yourself a script for a particular compound that's not listed through some Johnny Walker negotiated medical condition that you may or may not be suffering from, getting yourself a script in a country where this compound is medically recognized for this medical condition, then technically, under WADA's own guidelines, you should be able to get away with its use. And with that being said, the large majority of the compounds that we're going to discuss in this video are not FDA approved anywhere in the world, so keep this in mind. And while you might still be able to call yourself a half-natty if you follow the guidelines of this WADA doping stack of 2025, if they decide to pull you aside for doping tests under S0 non-approved substances, you might still fail if they watch you pee into the doping sample cup with your pants down and your shirt lifted. That's probably the highlight of a doping officer's day, right? Watching genitals urinate. All right. Moving over to S1, the anabolic agents. Long story short, all of the good stuff is already listed. Last year, they added trestolone mint to the anabolic agents list. And it means as of now, there's currently nothing really left anabolic androgenic steroid-wise that you can get away with, or at least stuff that actually works. Unless you stick with the established detection times, which are scientifically proven and known anecdotally, which might be a little bit shorter than the scientifically established detection times, or a little bit longer because you use these anabolic androgenic steroids for such a long time, whereas the scientifically proven detection times are usually established on a single administration, right? But we have services for that. Keep that in mind. Testosterone is on the list under 1-testosterone. DHEA is under the list as progesterone. Stimbolone is on the list. Trestolone mint is on the list. Even tetrahydrogesterone, better known as the Clear, is on the list. And even clenbuterol and several SARMs and steroidal SARM YK11 are listed under S.2 other anabolic agents. The only compounds not listed here are pregnenolone and progesterone, which its anabolic properties can be debated. Pregnenolone converts into DHEA, testosterone, DHT, and estradiol downstream, and progesterone might have some collagen synthesis benefits. We'll address that a little bit later on. But even if you're megadosing pregnenolone at, let's say, 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams daily, it doesn't really offer much of a performance-enhancing benefit unless you're androgen deficient or elderly, which also means you're probably not competing at the absolute highest level where you're subject to drug testing. So let's leave the pregnenolone and progesterone off the list under anabolic agents for now, but progesterone will make a comeback a little bit later on when we discuss optimizing collagen synthesis. Technically, though, they forgot to include several selective androgen receptor modulators, prohormones, and ecdysterones, so I guess we're still in the green there. With the Half-Natty approved SARMs, AC262536, that's the only one that I actually know dosages of. You have several other oral SARMs. The numbers are on the screen, most notably RAD 150, right, which is a modified version of RAD 140, better known as Testalone, which is listed. And there's even a transdermal SARM called LY305. Now, most of these oral SARMs aren't really readily used. I can't really find any anecdotal reports of people using these SARMs. I don't think that they're available anywhere besides AC262536, of which the dosages are on the screen, but because people have anecdotal experience with it. And the animal models, I believe that there's some dosage extrapolation to the human equivalent dose, right? So take this as a guideline, but please do additional research if you're interested in this particular SARM. There are Half-Natty approved prohormones, a little bit fallen to the wayside. Prohormones aren't really used anymore. The only prohormone which is still being used is Superdrol, which isn't really a prohormone. That just was a anabolic androgenic steroid classified as a prohormone falsely, right, when it was being sold back in the day. So there's an injectable prohormone called bolondiol, also known as anabiol. There's several oral prohormones, including cholesterol, pregnenolone, progesterone, and, all these funky chemical names which are on the screen. And keep in mind that some of these prohormones might actually metabolize into steroidal compounds which are listed. I mean, this is the whole function of prohormones. It's you're taking this orally or injectably in a benign, quote-unquote benign state, and then in the body it metabolizes into something with anabolic properties. Some of these metabolites of these prohormones might actually be listed. Now, I didn't do the research. I just went through all of the prohormones which aren't specifically listed themselves, but it doesn't guarantee that you're not going to fill for a particular compound, as some of these prohormones might convert into a compound that's actually listed. Couldn't find any anecdotal reports on all of these prohormones, so I don't know the exact dosages. If you want to use these, which I'm highly advising against, then, you're going to have to do your own research going forward. And I will say this before we continue, none of these are listed already, and since WADA is pretty thorough with their listings of anabolic agents, I mean, how much of an anabolic effect do you expect to get from these prohormones that aren't listed? Right? Even Proviron is listed, and how much of an anabolic response you get from Proviron, that remains to be debated. So your mileage might vary, do additional research, but I don't think any of these prohormones are suitable to be used to elicit an anabolic effect. Ecdysterones, though, are still WADA-approved anabolic agents. While ecdysterone itself is currently on the monitoring program, you could combine terkesterone with ecdysterone or use them solo, whatever you prefer. And these are the only two compounds that are non-suppressive that you can actually use alongside over-the-counter supplements and lifestyle practices to boost your testosterone levels naturally. And on the topic of boosting testosterone levels, what can we do for the maximum testosterone levels to boost the anabolic response in our body somewhat? Keep in mind that selective androgen receptor modulators and prohormones have a suppressive effect on the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis and can actually lower testosterone levels and estradiol levels over time. Right? So this is probably a worse combination to go for if you go with SARMs only or prohormones only and throwing the kitchen sink of over-the-counter testosterone boosters at it. Your testosterone levels might still be low and your estradiol levels might still be low because now you're solely relying on these WADA-approved SARMs or prohormones. So I would rather go with ecdysterone and terkesterone alongside an over-the-counter supplement stack to boost your testosterone levels and sleeping according to your circadian rhythm. That seems to be a more suitable approach and sustainable approach than going with oral SARMs or prohormones. And since you can't use a testosterone base or follow HCG monotherapy to sustain intertesticular sex hormone production while using WADA-approved SARMs or prohormones, that basically means that these compounds are completely off the menu unless you prefer to walk around in an androgen deficient and estrogen deficient state all the time. I mean, even following a dianabol only cycle sounds more appealing, even though that's certainly not WADA approved. Again, the only non-suppressive compounds you can actually use are testosterone and ecdysterone, which you can use alongside over-the-counter supplements and lifestyle practices to boost testosterone levels, because these compounds are non-suppressive, and this would elicit the highest anabolic response, which is still compliant with the guidelines that WADA has set in this WADA prohibited list.